I'm Jan. I have here Clifton, both from FF Group. And our first topic is called Edge versus Cloud AI for Traffic and Safety Solutions. We have also two guests, Christian and Joe. Christian from Genetec, Joe from Hanwha Vision. There are two rapidly evolving technologies in our industry at the moment, at least what we see. It's AI on the edge and also cloud-based AI surveillance platforms. Genetec is known for, in the LPR world, is known for their Sharpie cameras, Cloud Runner platform, on LPR platform, and also for integrating third-party LPR metadata from FF Group, from Hanwha, from many others. Hanwha Vision is one of the pioneers of edge analytics, both own production or third party using their open platform. And Hanwha is also announcing its own camera to cloud platform called OnCloud. We as FF Group, we are, I hope, very known for edge-based LPR and vehicle attribute recognition. And we have also a backend in our offering, which is called Data Factory, and which can be also server-based or cloud-based. So that's the setup. We have already proven over multiple years our experience in projects that modern AR cameras are already fast and powerful enough for complex high-speed multi-lane recognition. And there are many examples, in particular also from the US market, that cloud is also easier for rapid deployment. It's perfect for these huge projects with a lot of cameras, a lot of data streaming to one point. But what are the advantages and weak points of both edge and cloud-based approach? That's what we will discuss today. Where are cloud solution offerings today? Where all the market is going? And yeah, we have to say also, all of our companies, we are still benefiting from server-based. We have a lot of deployments on servers. So will it stay on the server? Will everything move to edge? Will everything move to cloud? That's the questions we would like to discuss today. So welcome again. Guys, as Genetec and Hanwha, is there any preference to cloud or edge approach? Christian, what is the, let's say, your position or Genetec view?
I don't think there's a preference per se, because it really depends on the type of use cases. In some use cases, edge is much more powerful, much cheaper to deploy, and in other cases, cloud or server-based is much better positioned to offer, like, let's say, either the flexibility or the precision that you need for sort of some of those use cases. So there's not a preference per se, but I would say that generally, if it's a general use case that is very common, edge typically provides the best way to do it. But if it's more bespoke and you need something that is very specific, then the cloud will do it. There's also other aspects to that, but in very broad terms, that's the way that we're looking at it right now.
Mm-hmm. Joe, what is your view from Hanwha perspective?
Yes, yeah, very happy to address this topic, right? As many of our listeners here are trying to figure out, is edge my go-to, or should I be going onto a deployment with a cloud? Just as Christian mentioned here, you cannot basically set a preference for every use case, whether it has to be edge or it has to be cloud-based. But certain aspects that I would like to bring up here. So, as you know, initially, if you take a step back, any analytics, forget about AI that recently came up. Of course, it is there as much powerful as you see it these days. They are all analytics that is server-based analytics. But right now, edge is becoming more powerful than anything else. We have seen that. It is edge devices, as you say, in our scenario, is typically a camera, or it could be any of these such sensors there. They all collect the data. But how about if you can process that data to a certain extent on the cloud itself, I mean, on the edge itself? Will that reduce the overhead on the server? And you can get a faster approach, faster reaction to that event. So, how quick it's all about in an emergency situation, especially how quick you can respond to it or how efficient your processing could be. So, if that processing can be moved onto the edge, that would reduce little bit of a bandwidth because we are talking again here about video, large amount of bandwidth probably compared to a normal text data that is moving across, and processing of it at the server based. So I would say a combination of some intelligence on the edge. How much is that depending on the situation? And then moving that to a user perspective with a UI or an analytics that is coming from all the edge devices to be presented on a server based, on a cloud based, to be able to make an informed decision for the user. I think that would be a best approach that I would take considering the current scenarios in the market.
Mm-hmm. Uh, uh, Joe, let's continue with what you have mentioned. Do you think that the latest AI cameras are really, let's say, powerful and fast enough to cover all the cases? I mean, like all the cases, most of the cases. Uh,
Yeah, of course. That again, depending on the type of cases, right, that we are talking about it. So let's analyze a couple of them, for instance. Some of these, as we, again, as I mentioned previously, ultimately, they are all type of sensors, right? Edge is a sensing device. Could it be an audio? Could it be a video? Or could it be just data sensing devices? And what we can get out of that device, edge device, right? So that's basically we are talking about here. In this scenario, edge is becoming very powerful, honestly. And analytics on that is becoming traditional versus AI analytics is getting much more powerful. So just to take one example, right? Um, we had traditional analytics on the cameras, we all know. Yeah, scene changing, that's because could be something that in an environment that the camera is looking at, a tree that is changing with the wind, a direction that is moving out, versus a person that is moving through that scene. So, in my first case, it really doesn't matter for me if an alert is generated from a tree that is moving, but I am interested in my perimeter that a person is crossing my whatever virtual line or my perimeter there. And if the edge device is capable of telling me that, yeah, it is not a tree that is moving, it is not any object versus it is that particular object. And today, an edge device is capable of doing that in a much more analytical way. To say some of our edge analytics, as you all know, it can differentiate, yeah, between, let's say, a cat versus a human being, or a person wearing a hat, or a person with that a piece of a cloth, a red cloth versus, or I don't know, a child versus a man or a woman that is moving across the scene. So edge device is capable of analyzing much more details that I would like to see it in my backend, right? What am I looking at? That is what I
yeah,
want to see it.
Mm-hmm.
like I'm always saying, my mobile phone is the most powerful computer in our home, and basically it's also a good example for an edge device. And you know what our phones are capable of, and cameras are basically only 1-2 years behind. So I totally agree. I totally agree. But Christian, from your point of view, are there still some, let's say, use cases or let's say situations or challenging cases where we still need to look for server-based because like cameras are not enough?
Yeah, I think so. The cameras, like Joe was saying, getting really powerful. I think they have a clear advantage that they have the raw frames that they can process without having to process a transcoded stream. This is a really huge advantage for analytics, and they can do so continuously at a low cost, right? But when it comes to, let's say, having a change in the model or like a new model that you want to push to the edge, it's a bit more complicated than pushing it into a cloud, to a cloud system. So this means that if you're doing things that are, you want to go a little bit more precise on what you're doing. Like I'll take an example. If you want to do make of a vehicle, you could do it at the edge, right? Like I think at the edge, most analytic will be able to identify the make of a vehicle pretty easily. But the model of the vehicle, that's much harder, right? And you need to continuously update those models to be able to detect the new. Sorry, I'm using models in two different ways here, but the car models, right? So you need to update the AI model to update the car models. Anyways, so that makes it easier to do in the cloud, right? Because in the cloud, you can continuously update that without having to push these models, these AI models to the edge. There are other examples too, where sometimes you need to combine the data from multiple edge devices to make sense of the data. So I'll take just an example with people. We know that the camera can very precisely detect a person and detect potentially the color of their clothes or if they're wearing a hat, like Joe said, or things like that. So we can use that data to then be able to search, like I'm looking for a person with, let's say, a construction hat wearing a white shirt, let's say, right? And that's fine. You can do that at the edge and take that data. But if you want to go further and say, well, I actually want to look at all these people that are wearing a hat and have a blue shirt and do a picture comparison of the best shot and see like which one are actually the same person with a high level of confidence. That's something that you cannot do at the edge because the edge doesn't have all the information from all those sensors. So doing this enrichment of the data in the cloud becomes really interesting, right? So I really like whenever we find a use case for a hybrid approach, it's where the fun happens, right? Like where you can leverage the edge for the continuous analysis and the cheap analysis of very common use cases like detecting a vehicle, a person, things like that. But then using that and enriching it in the cloud to then go a little bit further and being able to do some use cases that are just not possible with just the edge. So those hybrid models are becoming, I think, really interesting, right? To have a mix of both.
Yeah, Christian, I totally agree with you. I think in the beginning when everyone had SD cards on their cameras and there was cloud, everyone would just do cloud. But we're seeing more and more often that the hybrid solution becomes the more effective solution, across the board at the moment. So I'm glad you raised that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Also, if I may add one more aspect to what Christian and Clinton was talking about is one of the challenges with the organization is, dispersed data. What do I mean? The whole, of course, the top management or an executive management would like to see the holistic picture of an organization, right? Or that would consist about a certain piece. Let's say, as we talk about vehicle security, probably coming from certain aspect of, let's say a few cameras there, to be combined with other data. That's kind of a challenge, right? If you look at our audience today, probably they would think about how many of such applications that are dispersed. I have to get into that screen to see that activity with my marketing versus with my security. If I can have one piece of information from one point of view, where that cloud aspect that Christian and Clinton you were talking about is very powerful actually at a cloud edge.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that was nice invitation for the next session.
so,
So
and I think it also has to do with metadata as well as video. Both have
Yes.
their massive advantages from a hybrid solution from what we've seen in different implementations all over the world. Sorry, Jan,
Agreed.
back to you.
no worries, no worries. Let's go further. Guys, what do you think about this, let's say, server-based versus cloud-based? Like I'm based in Europe. I see every police customer, every city, they are local server only. They don't want to hear about cloud. But it's also here, especially in private segment, of course, it's growing, but you can't compare with the US. Why do you think the US has adopted cloud so much faster than Europe? Christian, you can start.
Sure. Yeah. Well, I mean, the legislation has a big thing to do in there, right? Like the cloud, the legislation around cloud in US are much more relaxed than Europe. It depends on the states, right? Not every state. Some state have put their own restrictions on top of the federal ones, but still, it's typically more relaxed in terms of privacy protection as well and things like that. There's also the gov cloud on the mega cloud providers that are providing at least a sense of of safety for those government agencies. So this made the cloud adoption much more rapid. Also, I mean, those big mega cloud providers are US born, right? So that definitely there's a geographic aspect to it. But the European market is slower to adopt, mostly because of privacy. I mean, video is very sensitive data, right? Like you can identify people, you can identify vehicles very easily with video if it's not anonymized prior to being sent to the cloud. And so if somebody gets their hands on that, it could be catastrophic. And for those agencies that would be using it, I mean, they would have huge fines to pay, right? So this is why I think that the cloud adoption has been slower, and the server-based analytics are still providing really good value for what they're doing. So there's no clear reason yet, like the advantage of moving to cloud and getting rid of your IT infrastructure and all that cost that comes around it is the ROI is not as strong in Europe than it is in North America for the moment. That might change in the future. I think, especially with the more and more private cloud. Well, not private, but like other companies that are offering cloud services that are not, Microsoft and AWS, are starting to grow in the different regions. And more local data centers are being built in the different countries so that the data doesn't need to cross borders. That's going to help with the adoption, but it's still going to be behind the US for quite a few years, I'm sure.
Joe, what do you think? I mean, you are launching your own cloud platform. Are there any basically plans to, launch in the US and continue in Europe like later, or is there maybe you have more like a global view on this? What do you see here? Or your turn.
Yeah, sure. Thank you. So we clearly see an adaptation of cloud, a so-called cloud appetite among our user community, right? So that is one of the reason, not only Hanwha, but if you look at any other companies like Genetec or anyone else, they do have that path, I believe. Christian alluded to that earlier. So moving on, trying to see where that market is growing into. And of course, yes, US market, because of certain conditions, it is growing more than the others. But I believe this will catch up on a global basis. Though probably US has started because of its environment that is conducive to that kind of an infrastructure. But I want to turn your attention to another aspect. Normally, we are talking about video data, especially about in the context of vehicle traffic safety, which is mostly within the public sector, right? Mostly onto public environments where city police, like that kind of law enforcement division kind of handles most of those kind of. But we see that they began to trust cloud, whether it is for traffic safety or for some other, for their data repository to be in the cloud and to be able to access it. Now, a growing trend in the US is that among the public safety users, earlier, if you talk about, let's say, to a law enforcement, police, or any other law enforcement for that, the first thing is if they hear about cloud deployment, they would simply say, no, no, that's not for us, you know,
Right. Yeah.
versus now, yeah, maybe because I believe their work environment, maybe with whatever that happened during the pandemic and a shift or a change of mind that has caused, people have realized, yeah, I don't have to be tied in an organization within a structured network to be able to do my work. I can be anywhere and my data needs to be available to me from any time, anywhere, all the time, right? So, and then we have built up, just as again, going back to Christian, as we have mentioned actually. So, yeah, the security within the network, the privacy laws that has come in, all this aspect has been very conducive and trustable to these users, especially those who are doubting could be that public safety users who verify it. And we have checks and balances in place, like FIP certified communications, or let's say we talk about cloud is gov clouds, like, yeah, I know for sure my data is protected 100%.
Mhm.
Probably some organizations might be thinking a cloud provider with all that infrastructure built up is much more capable of protecting my data than by my little organization who doesn't have much of an infrastructure built around it. Because I am
That's
not
true.
a police department. We have heard people saying, we are not an IT company. Of course, we need IT services, but we our focus is serving the people, law enforcement. And IT, if somebody whom I can trust, I would leave it to them. So let them who are capable of doing it do that for me, and I trust them. I always
Yeah.
take. Go ahead, go ahead.
I will take you, Joe, with me when speaking with municipalities here in Europe. I mean
Of course, of
that's
course.
that's perfect convincing them. I mean, it's true. I totally agree,
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
like
guys.
Totally agree.
years back, right? My father would say, my money under my bed is my safest place. Whereas
Mm.
I would say in my generation, you know, bank is better than me safeguarding my money.
Yeah.
Okay, we have a couple of the last minutes. I would just maybe ask one more thing. You can choose cloud or edge, whatever. But do you have some experience within your company where you have won big contracts, or the big customer or very important customer, only thanks to the fact you are deploying all on the edge, or you have cloud backend or partner providing nice cloud backend? Was it like, do you already have this experience that this is like deciding, or it's like is a key feature, or not yet? It's just like coming.
Well, I think on the Genetec side, without naming anything specific, but there are, I have example for both, right? There are examples where having everything at the edge, I'll take for license plate recognition, for example, having everything built at the edge was key to be able to do the use cases that some of our largest customers needed. One good example is opening gates at a very secure facility for vehicles, right? So that whole processing needs to happen at the edge. Not, in a typical, let's say, parking scenario and everything, doesn't matter. It can go to a server and come back. It's fine. But if you're in a very secure area and you need that gate to be able to open on a moment's notice when a plate is read, that there's no time for things to go to the server and come back. And also it provides, like, having to go to server is an extra step of failure that they don't want to have. So they want the edge to directly control the gates, right? Everything, all the logic is happening at the edge. And this is like a combination of our SharpV with our Cloud Link, Synergist Cloud Link for the access control. So those are use cases where everything at the edge was very important. But there's also use cases where everything, and having the cloud there was very important, like for being able to, if we stay in the license plate realm, to enrich the vehicle recognition with being able to detect, let's say, when there's a sticker on the vehicle or a paper plate or things like that, things that the edge doesn't have the capability, at least our edge models didn't have the capability of doing, but that once we were able to plug the cloud into it and being able to enrich it, then they were able to use that. So like for police agencies, sometimes using the plate is not a reliable way of tracking a criminal because they might change the plate around. Well, being able to know that it's a pickup with a sticker of a smiley face on the back, well, then you got something. And so having these capabilities helped us win some of those police agencies that were looking specifically for that type of use case.
Joe, I think I don't need to ask. It's more, or it will be edge, right?
Yeah, edge, and at the same time, let's say a retail that we were looking into, right? So they wanted to know a nationwide deployment where they talked about it, right? So where they are going in for, I want to know in that location from my headquarter perspective, I want to know, that person was in my location A versus in my location B. So I want to look at into a cloud environment where I want to make sense of what happened between these two different locations. So edge alone is not enough. That typically demands a full cloud-based environment in that sense. So typically what happens is, I would say, depend on the use cases, what you are going in for and what your user scenarios are mostly.
Perfect. Thanks, guys, for your participation.